So, what's your birthday, Unc?
August 15th,
Of what year?
1923.
And what was your dad's name?
My father's name was Krikor,
And your mom?
and my mother's name was Arpene.
And where was your dad born?
My dad was born in Harpertsi, and my mother was born in Erzurum, Armenia. My dad did go in the military service here in the United States for about 6 months, and he was sent down to a camp in Georgia. I have his honorable discharge papers inside here. My father had a tailor shop, a small little tailor shop.
Where was it?
And it was in Chicago, very close to where we lived. And he sent out the dry cleaning. He sent out the man would come by in a truck from the large dry cleaning company several miles away, and my dad had to put the identification tags on each garment that went out. And then when the dry cleaning was brought back, if it was a man's suit, my dad had to press it on a presser. You've seen those pressers. And he did that heavy work. And he was very good with alterations because prior to opening up his own tailor shop, he had worked downtown in Chicago with, I think, Hart, Schaffner, and Marx as a sewer. He was as a cutter and sewer. So he had a lot of cutting experience, cutting material and sewing for men's suits. And so he was very good on alterations, and ladies would bring in dresses and coats and things to be shortened and skirts, and he would sit there on his counter, and he had a sewing machine. And
You mentioned you have two brothers.
I have two brothers. An older brother, Harold, who is now living in Phoenix, Arizona, and my younger brother, Armin. I believe you know him, and he is back in Orland Park in Illinois, southwest suburb of Chicago.
So where exactly did you grow up? What area?
Grew up on the far south side of Chicago in a section called West Pullman, because there were the Pullman shops where the Pullman cars were made, and then we were just west of Pullman, so our section was called West Pullman, but it was still in Chicago.
What was your address where you grew up? Do you remember?
11929 South Wallace Street, Chicago. We in the wintertime, in the fall, when the ground was still soft, or just before winter, before the weather was going to get cold, we would get our shovels in our empty lot that we played in, and we would make a bank. We would make dirt banks all the way around for a hockey rink, and then we would make a call to the fire department, and the fire department would come out and connect their hose to the fire hydrant and run their hose over to our rink and turn on the water and let the water run overnight. And then they would come back in the morning and shut off the water, disconnect their hose, roll up their hose and put it back in their truck and go away. And we had our hockey rink for the winter, and we played hockey in the winter. When I'd come home from school, from high school, I would grab, I had skates. I was the only one that had skates in the family. I had skates and I had a hockey stick, and you put on heavy clothes, gloves and everything. And earmuffs, we had earmuffs that we put on to keep our ears from. And so I would go out, and even if it was below zero, we'd go out and we'd play hockey right out in the open. We'd play hockey, and many times I've gone home crying from the pain, from the cold, and my hands would be frozen, my feet would be frozen, and my mother had to rub my hands for 10 or 15 minutes to get the circulation back going, and my feet the same way. But we played hockey. We went to see hockey games downtown when the Chicago Blackhawks were playing. Well, while going to school in the summertime, we went caddying. We went out to a golf course, which was out in the suburbs, and we had to take we had to walk about 2 miles to get to a train station away from our home, so that we get a cheaper ticket, and we would buy a monthly ticket. And we would go out to the golf course. The golf course we went to was Olympia Fields Country Club, and so we caddied. We also, before caddying, we used to go out to the farms in the summertime. We used to go out to the farms, and we had to walk there, walk about a mile or 2 miles to get to the farms in our end of the Chicago there. And they would give us a row of, say, tomatoes or different products, and we had to go down the road in a bent-over position and pull out the weeds, and we were weeding all day long. And for working all day long, you got $1. Caddying wasn't any more expensive. When you caddied, you got either $1 or $1.25 for 18 holes of golf. And then when you came back after caddying 3.5 hours on the golf course, you were hungry, and so you'd have to buy a bottle of Coke or a bottle of Pepsi and small little pies that they had. So you were eating up part of your profit that you had made, the money, and they get on a train and go home. So we would do that in the summertime. My dad worked very hard in the store. He worked, like on Saturday, he would be in the store at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he wouldn't come home until about 10 o'clock at night, 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So he did. I would have to say that my dad, even during Depression times, worked very hard to support his family. It was rough. And we had to beg him. We had to beg him to give us a dime to go to a movie. It cost a dime in those days to go to a movie, and some days he wouldn't give us a dime to go to a movie, and so Armin and Harold, my two brothers, would say, you're pretty good with him. Why don't you go on over and try to make him laugh or something, so that he can give us some money so we can go to a movie. So I used to put my hand in his pocket where all his change was, and I'd get my fist full of all of his change, and then he'd start laughing. He said, "Oh, okay." So he'd give us each a dime to go to a movie, and he'd give us a few pennies to buy penny candy, and that was Depression time. A dime. I worked with the New York Central Railroad downtown. At that time, when I got the job, I was riding the commuter train going downtown. And then I worked with the Pullman Company out on the south side, Pullman Aircraft. They were making wings for C-47 planes, and I was typing 9 hours a day for 6 days a week. This is the war is going on now. See, this is the wartime, This was after Pearl Harbor Day. The pay was good, but then I got drafted, and
When did you get drafted?
at that time, when I got drafted, I was still working with Pullman, but in another division where they were building at their Calumet Lake Calumet dock. They were building a submarine, not a submarine. These little ships. And what I was typing on at that time was typing on labels that went on all the wiring in this first ship that was going to be launched. It was a small ship. I think they call it a destroyer escort or something like that. And I had already my papers for going into the service. And I think because they were getting this first ship ready for launching, and the typing that I was doing was vital to get onto that first ship, they got a deferment for me from the service for about 2 weeks until we could get the ship all ready for launching. This is all during wartime.
When did you get drafted?
So then I finally went into service in May of 1943. Okay, and
Where did you go?
I went first to Camp Grant, which is just outside of Rockford, Illinois. But then I ended up at the Jefferson Barracks, just outside of St. Louis, and I was there about 2 weeks, and then my brother Armin came down to the same camp, the Jefferson Barracks. But he had enlisted in the aviation cadet program. He wanted to be a pilot. So, and at that time in the camp down there in St. Louis, I think there were 60 or 70,000 troops there. It was a big camp. And he was away at one end of the camp, and I was away at another end of the camp. And at night, I would walk all the way to his end of the camp to visit with him. And then we had a picture taken together there in our uniforms. They have a studio in camp there, and we had a picture taken together. And I was there for basic training. He was there for basic training.
What was basic training like?
Basic training is everything, boy. When I came back out of the service, I got a job downtown working for the New York Central.
Right.
The New York Central
You
Railroad.
said that.
I mentioned that earlier.
Right.
And and I wasn't making too much money doing the secretarial and typing work. I was making like every month about $250, $225. So then what happened is I got a pass on the New York Central, and I wanted to go to and we didn't have a good school set up for building up my speed on the stenotype in Chicago at that time. The school had I don't know if they had tapes in those days. They had recordings or something with fast speed, and I went and looked at it, and I didn't like it. And I was told that there was a good school in Washington, D.C. So I took this pass from the railroad, and it was an overnight ride into New York City. And then we went to Ebbets Field, where I saw Jackie Robinson play. And they were playing the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Cardinals had Stan Musial in center field at that time. And then I went down to the school in Washington, and I saw that they had their speed classes for building up speed in the Willard Hotel. And I went over there and I sat in on a couple of the classes, and it was live dictation. and it was good. So I went home and I packed up. I went back home and I packed up, and I went and signed up with the GI Bill. The GI Bill really helped me. Would play poker. We'd sit down and play poker, just and so this one girl came up to me and said her name was Rena, and she was Hungarian, I think, or maybe she's Italian. I forget now. Anyway, she said we have a little girl that just came into our office. She worked in Donnelly's. Oh. This little girl has just come to the United States from Arabia. And she said, we are all going out Saturday night to go dancing. And if you would like, I will ask her if she would like to go out on a date with you. So I said yes. First time they were always trying to fix me. I said okay. So she asked Arpene.
Then that's Ara, the one in the white jacket. He was one of the ushers at the. This is Mrs. Arpene Simonian. And these are the invited guests, I guess. Some people from the office, Arpene worked here, and he worked here. And here comes the bride.
Gary, I think I'm going to need some help.
Here comes the groom. It's Uncle Popkin. Well, we were actually in Beirut. I was sick.
Arpene said, come and have a sit down. She's like, okay. This is the Tajirian's house in Chicago.
We met the house because of the eggplants, and we used to have lots of vegetables. Yeah, big, huge yard, beautiful big yard.
That's Arpene.
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah.